Well, with that said, judges, suppose we can begin the round now. Just to clarify first, I want to establish a off-time roadmap where I outline my case. So essentially, I'll start with top of case, and I'll go to framing, contentions, and the speech for my constructive. I have a 5-minute timer, and I actually don't have my phone on me, so
I can do.
yes.
No worries. I'll go ahead and do 5 minutes here.
All right.
And just press start.
5 minutes starts now. Good day, judges and fellow competitor. It's very nice to make it into the bronze round as a first timer. With that said, though, I stand firmly in the resolution that the United States federal government should repeal ag-gag laws as stated by the resolution. Now, to start off with some definitions, what is an ag-gag law? It is basically a legal quote-unquote gag, which is to say a silencing on whistleblowers by punishing them for recording footage of animal agricultural practices. And a repeal, essentially, is to revoke and annul a law, and that is simply to eliminate it from the books. With that said, we must frame this round as a policy round where we have a net benefit analysis, where one side weighs why keeping or so-called refuting the resolution I provide is good, and why I have to prove that upholding the resolution is also good through net benefit analysis. Now, to get things started on how ag-gag laws have worked historically, I want to give you a bit of context. So in 1905, there was an extremely seminal work called The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. Now, had this work not been published, judges, there would not have been the FDA and USDA as we know today. This was a seminal piece on ensuring the transparency and maintenance of well-oiled regulations so that there was no flagrant abuses of animal rights and unsanitation as was reported by Upton Sinclair. Now, to bring it back to the present, I want to bring up two contentions as to why present ag-gag laws are extremely egregious and should be repealed federally. My first contention is that they are a blatant violation of freedom of speech and freedom of the press as outlined in the First Amendment. Now, according to an article shared by the Department for Health and Human Services, or HHS, ag-gag laws at the state level would subject so much as reporters, researchers, and activists to civil lawsuits and criminal charges. Now, these criminal charges can get you up to 2 years in jail for a first-time offense and can lead up to a felony. This is extremely egregious when we consider that these laws are targeting people who so much as speak out on them. So it has a wide-ranging punitive effect, and it has demonstrated that if you so much as report on them, you will be subject to an extremely heavy hand of the law. Now, what does this look like in particular? Well, according to the Associated Press, when the law was struck down by a federal judge in Iowa in September of last year, they gave the reason for striking this law down as a bad precedent, so to speak. And now what do I mean by this? The argument that was made by the ag-gag law, the legislator that passed it, the Iowa legislator, was that it ensured private individuals were not subject to frivolous lawsuits, and that private property is protected from First Amendment review. However, the judge said this is simply an erroneous precedent because at that point you could criticize a politician and be jailed for it because it would be considered in the technical sense private property in that regard. So it is a shaky argument, and to have this exist would be a violation of what is known as prior restraint, which, outlined by the 1970 Supreme Court case, New York Times of the United States, is a direct violation of the First Amendment and is an unconstitutional offense, which is illegal. My second contention is that the laws created by ag-gag rulings perpetuate flagrant animal abuse, the heart of the issue, so to speak. According to Forbes, in May of 2016, the ag-gag laws and effects of agricultural lobbying essentially silence any way of getting animal treatment out, and so much as even mocking or lampooning artists mocking and lampooning artists who point out animal cruelty will get you punished. The agricultural lobby is extremely strong, and in punishing people for speaking out against it, it implicitly defends animal abuse, especially when you consider that the agricultural lobby has $1.2 trillion, over 5% of the national GDP, and yet very little of those resources are allocated towards animal rights. A more damning example is a database from the American Society for the Prevention of the Cruelty of Animals, or ASPCA, which demonstrates that more than a dozen state laws have quick reporting laws. Report within 24... I see my time. 2 minutes across.
Okay, I'll be starting in 2 minutes right now.
All right.
Okay, I just want to ask you again of what exactly would get someone in trouble with the ag-gag law?
It would subject reports, researches, and activist work at a farmer's where they farm and keep livestock.
Just speaking out about what they're doing gets them in trouble?
It would be in a way that's secret, but often there are laws against, there are punishments for speaking out explicitly, as I mentioned with the agricultural lobby. So doing it whistleblowing is a effective and safe way to do it. But that whistleblowing is the very thing that is punished.
Okay, thank you. And in the case you talked about in 1905, where basically that's where you said that we got the FDA, we wouldn't have got the FDA without the whistleblower. Did the whistleblower use any type of recording device? Did they record it at all?
Well, this was in 1905. No, this was a novel, and it was the newspaper reporting by journalist Upton Sinclair, and it wasn't really evidence. It was an intro to the idea of transparent reporting in animal abuse, for animal abuse.
Okay, great. I just wanted to clarify. And just to confirm, you say that if anybody speaks out about what they see in these industrial farms, they would go to jail.
Not any,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily
Or reporters or employees.
Yes, in those locales, yes, they would be subject to these
If
laws.
they speak out, they go to jail. Okay. Thank you so much. Just concede the rest of the 5 minutes or the 5 seconds. So for here, is it 6 minutes?
Yes.
Correct. Okay, just making sure. Thank you. Let me get my paper here. Okay, I'm starting now. Thank you so much for everyone being here today. I want to congratulate my fellow opponent to make it to the bronze round. It's really awesome to be here. So as a NAIG, I'm going to say that we do not affirm the resolution that the United States federal government should repeal the ag-gag laws. I do agree this is a policy debate, and I do agree with the definitions of repeal, getting rid of, and I do want to say that ag-gag laws, from what I found, the ag-gag laws, they prohibit, restrict recordings at industrialized farming operations. That is the first thing you see when you Google, and I got that from USDA.org. So it is about people who not just speak out. It is people who record. So that's just the basis. Just want to confirm that's the proper definition. And from a DISAD 1, uniqueness. Farmers are among our greatest conservation allies. They produce crops that help feed, fuel, and clothe a growing world while caring for the lands and waters on which their livelihood depends. Farmers are good. We need farmers, and we cannot exist without farmers. Farmers contribute to raw materials such as, in major industries such as textile, leather, rice, sugar, etc. So many things they contribute. They help the economy. They improve rural employment. Farmers are also involved with food processing, distributing, and transportation. They help us grow the food, get the food, and get the food somewhere that we can go and get it. That's from all from KFB.org. Agriculture provides 10.5% of U.S. employment. That means 21 million jobs are produced from this industry. And in the status quo, inflation is only going higher, and there's a higher demand for farmers, and industrialized farming helps the economy, and they contribute $1.26 trillion to the United States, all from USDA.org. Basically, in the status quo, farmers are good, they help us, they produce jobs, we couldn't live without them. Link, To appeal the ag-gag laws, which the affirmative wants to do, this will lead to industrialized farming halting or decreasing their production of goods. The ag-gag law prohibits and restricts recording at industrialized farming operations. So there's only 6 states in which the ag-gag laws are still present, but those 6 states just so happen to be the 6 states where we produce the most food that we all need to survive. California and the Midwest produce the most goods for America. These laws are still present, and they are the highest producing states. So if the law gets rescinded, that these states if the ag-gag law gets rescinded, that means that these states won't really feel protected anymore. The ag-gag law protects farmers against organizations that present footage in a misleading way. This affects their job and their livelihood, and they need the right to stay protected from people who can construe that video. I'm not saying that whistleblowers aren't good. I'm just saying that if farmers at all feel threatened, that like, oh my gosh, someone could maybe record something and construe it in a way that makes me look bad and makes me lose my job, lose my livelihood, make me feel even a little disrespected, they could stop doing their job. Even just rescinding the law could have damaging effects to every single person in this room. Interlink. This leads to catastrophic effects for the U.S. without farmers. Having this law to protect them from harm, they will slow or halt production. awineline.org. Wanting to reveal animal cruelty is good, but this is our economy has made a great progress over the, animal cruelty has made great progress over the past 2 decades from awineline.org, and it's gotten better, and it will only get better. We are only improving, and we have no proper world without farmers, and is an essential part of society. For my impacts, first, food deficiency. Farmers provide the main source of food. Farmers always help us, and we need to support them, the people who feed us. By doing the AFS plan, we are just signaling that we don't really care about the farmers, and we care more about the potential of animal cruelty, even though animal cruelty has gotten better over the past decades, and we're doing so many things to try to implement that betterness for the animals, but we really need to care about the impacts of the people in this room. Without these farmers, we literally will not have the world we live into today. Second impact. Health ratio decreases. Without farmers, health ratio decreases and the chances of getting sick increases. 3, it affects every economy. And without farmers, the world economy will fail. Whole world depends on the agriculture of the US. There is a scarcity of farmers, and we need them, or else we all will have a food shortage, and that could lead to massive chaos in the world, and a lot of people could potentially be starving, and this could lead to illnesses or death. And the effects of international trade, that we are a big contributor for this, and most countries supply and export, and India has a very lack of farmers, and we're involved in international trade a lot with this, and if the farmers feel a little bit disrespected by us not doing these laws, this could affect international trade. So overall, you need to weigh this around on impacts. I'm all for helping animals and making sure that we help the animal cruelty, but if you vote for the AF on this plan, farmers could feel just not really good about this. This could make them feel disrespected. This can make them feel like they're going to lose their job, or they're going to stop having support because someone could construe something in a way, if they have a bad vendetta against them, if they fired someone for something, or someone could go and try to construe evidence in a wrong way. Even if it does help some animals, I'm just saying there's more harms than good, and we need to look at the impact. If we were to do this and remove the law in these 6 states that provide the most food for us, this could have astronomical impacts on every single person in this room today. So you just really need to weigh this on impacts. We will have food deficiency, more people will get sick, people will be starving. It will honestly crash our economy. So we need to weigh this on impacts today. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'll start.
Yes, 2 minutes of cross-examination. All right.
Ready? Start now.
Yes. So, did you propose a counter plan, or did you propose a simple refutation of the resolution? What was your policy, so to speak?
I'm just like against the resolution.
So it's a refutation then? Do you agree
I'm
with that
against the
framing?
resolution. I mean, I guess if I had to say a policy was just to protect the farmers.
Okay.
That's what I'm
Got it.
arguing today, is the impacts. To not vote for that.
Okay, so that would be that. Okay, and that said, what was your internal link that if we have no farmers, we have no society? Do you think that's a bit tautological?
No, I didn't say that we have no society without farmers. I said that farmers contribute hugely to our society, and without farmers, we will not have the society we know today. It will dramatically decrease in its value, and it will be affected negatively.
Okay, and would you say that is a bit of a slippery slope, getting from the laws that protect that protect farmers to, if we get rid of these laws, we'll have no farmers? What is the link between these two?
I'm just saying that some farmers could slow or decrease or halt, not that they all will. I'm just saying that farmers are kind of in the power in this situation. We're relying on them. And if they don't feel supported, I'm just saying this could happen, and they could not want to support the people who aren't really supporting them.
So how probable do you think it is then that an ag-gag law getting repealed would lead to a farmer going out of business and then contributing to economic law? How probable do you think that is?
I would say it's probably because why has Congress gotten rid of all of the ag laws in every single state besides the top 6 states that provide food for us? They must know something. They know that they need to keep this there in order for them to feel protected. Or else they would have gotten rid of it already.
I see. Okay. Judges, just to clarify, I will not be providing an off-case roadmap. I will just go straight into my rebuttal speech for 3 minutes.
Wait, let me go ahead and get that for you.
Yes.
Okay, starting now.
I want to thank my opponent for a very strong, constructive, but the case remains, Judge, that my plan still has solvency. Now, I ran out of time in my constructive, but I wanted to explain something about ag-gag laws that is especially egregious, and it is that they do implicitly defend animal cruelty. I forgot to mention that more than a dozen states, my opponent, meanwhile, talks about these states mostly being agricultural giants. But some of these states include Colorado and Missouri, which are not known to be massive exporters of grain. These states have quick reporting laws, which basically state that within 24 to 48 hours of an abusive incident at a farm happening, that is the only time you can report. It is essentially an implicit gag rule where if you do not react quickly enough in time, legislators will act like it's a statute of limitations and essentially drop any charges of animal abuse against the private individual that inflicted it. Now, this implicitly defends animal abuse in the law. Now, what are the impacts of this animal abuse? They are extremely widespread. They not only undermine the value and sanctity of farmers as an institution, but they also perpetuate extremely unsustainable farming practices, which inevitably lead to a degree of crisis when we are considered with global warming, which we have today. Now, aside from the impacts I talked about, I want to talk about how my opponent's impacts are moot. That is to say that they are not worth discussing. She talks about how these laws, if they are rescinded, would lead to the undermining of farmers' sovereignty. Now, this link was very weakly established, Judge. There was no demonstration that an ag-gag law getting repealed would directly lead to a farmer having decreased output. It was conjectured, but it was never proven. I have shown, however, that an ag-gag law directly leads to an increase in animal abuse. This impact, compared with a loss of production, which was very weakly gestured at, compared with the abuse of animals and the silencing and intimidation of reporters at the tens of thousands across the state level, this is a far greater impact. Moreover, my impact has greater probability. It's extremely unlikely for a massive statewide, even let alone national, depletion of farming resources simply because of ag-gag laws. However, the ag-gag laws, which I oppose, would certainly strengthen animal abuse as it stands today and worsen the lives of millions of animals, and more importantly, continue to silence and jail reporters. Now, it was told that it was recording, but that still stands as a violation of prior restraint. So, this is why you must vote for the affirmative. 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay, let's go ahead. I'm gonna first do a little roadmap and just go on case first, and then respond to any offense, and then just focus on my argument off case. Okay, starting now. Yeah, thank you again. This has been a great debate. First of all, I just really want to talk about their impact. I'm not really quite sure their impact is even really impactful to anyone inside of this room. And quite factually, they don't really have a lot of warrants for what they're saying. They said that, quote, ag-gag laws increase animal abuse. I don't really remember seeing a warrant or any evidence that does show that, because ag-gag laws are just there to protect reporters or whoever wants to record at a facility to show any abuse. It doesn't actually have anything to do with the abuse. It just protects people who want to record it. But what I'm saying is the main states, Congress still has these laws in place in the status quo for a reason. These states are the biggest contributor to our livelihood and our food. I know they say that I don't really link into that because this hasn't happened yet. I'm just saying there is a high chance that these farmers, there's a chance that if there's even a little bit of a chance, we need to not go with the ASK plan, because we rely so much on the farmers, more so than we do on, talking about animal cruelty. My impacts are, you need to weigh them more, because we rely on the farmers. And if we do anything to try to show that we don't support them, because if someone does show videotapes that doesn't actually have the truth in it, they could feel completely disrespected. And not only that, they also could have their whole name tarnished, their whole industry tarnished. It's not just one farm. These are industrialized, huge farming corporations. One video can ruin a whole corporation. And not only that, this could trigger multiple people in these states getting, offended that, oh my God, this video came out and this was totally wrong, and this farmer's whole corporation went down. Well, then I'm gonna kind of go on strike. Even if the farmers stopped for 45 days, literally our whole world would plummet. I'm not gonna say the whole international trade would go horrible. I want you to just really look at my first impact of just food deficiency. Even if they went on strike because one single person had a video come out that showed them wrongly and it affected their whole industrialization farm corporation, and all the farmers just went on strike just for a month or even 2 months, food deficiency would literally impact us so much. Farmers provide the main source of food in the states, including that have the ag laws, is California. We get so much food from California, and so does the whole country. If they even went on strike for even just a month or two, we would see food deficiency. People would be having less food. They would affect their health. It would affect our economy. It would affect employment, because if they're going on strike, as I said, 21% or 21 million jobs are literally in the agriculture industry. So even if they just went on strike for a month to talk about one case that went wrong because there was an ag law that got rescinded, it would affect us, and it would affect how much food we get, our economy, our jobs. Say your dad works in an agricultural company and he doesn't have a job for a month or two because they went on strike because the ag law got rescinded, and someone's striking because someone else had a video that was wrongly showing their corporation, and your dad no longer has a job for a month and you can't pay rent. There goes you and your dad living inside of this apartment, and you can't pay rent anymore. This affects us, and we need to just weigh on impacts. You need to judge on impacts, because even if all my impacts don't hold, it still holds because it affects us humans. It affects us people in the world, and farmers support us. We need to support them. Inflation is rising, and anything that could trigger farmers to not provide for us, we need to not do that plan, because the Congress already, like government, these laws are in place for a reason. If they do go against the First Amendment of speech, they are recording and they're showing that, and they just don't want on a private industry people to show them, because it could be wrongfully skewed. They're not trying to stop them from speaking, but even if so, that's still allowed. They're still allowed to do so. And if they have a small time in jail, or they could not, it's all up to the court. They are still, allowed to do that. But I'm just saying that these laws just need to be in place so that the farmers feel like they have the support. They feel like they have ground. He says I don't really link into that, but I'm just saying even there's a little bit of chance these farmers could even just go on strike for a month because of the wrong way that this law could, being rescinded, cause us, it would lead into my impacts. Maybe not the international trade, but it would affect our economy, and it would affect every single person in this room. So I really need you guys just to weigh on impacts. Think about humans, think about people, and supporting the farmers that support us. They have been there for us, and they're continually there for us. It is a hard job, and we need to weigh on impacts today. Please, Judge, you guys need to listen to me on this. My opponent didn't really have a warrant for ag laws increasing animal abuse, talks about probability. I'm just saying, even if there's a small probable chance, of this happening, it's still important to look at because the magnitude is huge and the proximity is huge. I have two things there, magnitude and proximity. And I also think it is probable because in today's time, everything is so divided. If they do not feel supported, who knows which way they could go in America. Things are very divided and you just want to make sure you're supporting the people that support you. So please today, please vote for the nay, and I stand my ground. Okay, yeah.
Fantastic.
Okay, a few minutes starting
Yes.
now.
To be clear, Judge, there is no reason why you should not vote for the affirmative when I outline the solvency of my case. And it's simply that. We ought to eliminate this at a federal level through an injunction. And what I mean by that is that, as I've demonstrated time and time again in my constructive and rebuttal, these laws are a clear violation of the First Amendment and prior restraint. This is a precedent that has existed for over 5 decades. And allowing these ag-gag laws to even exist at the state level is a clear violation of prior restraint. Now, my opponent talks about me not having a warrant for these ag-gag laws creating animal abuse. But I literally cited in my constructive and also my rebuttal as well, that from the database from the ASPCA, that quick reporting laws create a situation where reporting animal abuse becomes incredibly difficult. Now, why would you make animal reporting abuse if you wanted to stop it? It is only to uphold it through the interests of the farming lobby. And this is another thing I want to put on, Judge, is that my opponent talking about the farmer sovereignty as one of her main contentions is simply a lie. You cannot say on one hand that, oh, the farmers are suffering when they have a massive lobby, $1.2 trillion to spend, when very little of that is spent on animal rights, and then act as if a small investigation is enough to topple behemoths like General Mills or Kellogg's because of a abusive story that emerged. With all of that said, Judge, I want you to examine 3 voters for the AF case. The first voter is the press, simply speaking. A recording is enough to put a small-time journalist behind bars because they had the guts to go behind a company without him pressuring them with lawsuits and slap suits, as in basically unpayable legal fees. They had the balls to do that, and they will get punished if the negs plan goes into fruition. This is why you must vote as my first voter. My second voter is the quality of life. There is simply a greater amount of welfare and net benefits that will be achieved with my plan because it upholds the rights of animals, which may seem insignificant, but nevertheless leads to a more sustainable environment and future for all of us, and prevents farmers from exploiting the environment we live in and pushing out smaller farmers. She barely talks about the behemoths, the corporations that are able to get away with this animal abuse because they're protected by the big agriculture lobby. And the last voter I want you to consider is free speech. Yes, free speech, because prior restraint being trampled by these laws is simply unprecedented. And I want you to vote on the affirmative for that reason. Thank you. Thank you so much. I gotta say, wow. Thank you, judges, for being patient. That was a long.
Thank you.
I'm not a judge, I'm just hanging out.
So are we free to go, judges?
Whenever you guys are done deliberating, let me know if you guys are going
I
to
think it's on the ballot.
leave results or give us any advice or.
I can use some rice. I have some for UCSD. Okay, first of all, you need to go to the pastor when you give your speeches.
Yes, I agree.
I noticed that in the first round. Then you got the pastor, which I was kind of happy, but you just need to then go to the pastor so you can make your point.
Yes, I agree.
Also, I can remember things at the end, but you need to say, cite case law. What you could have done is bring up cases regarding animal abuse in the farming industry specifically. There's like a lot of cases surrounding this that you could use, saying that, and technically also you also could have brought up that technically all these corporations that farming isn't owned by individuals anymore, they're owned by companies. These
Right.
huge companies. So this law pretty much protects companies, not the actual farmers. Since farmers just technically in the control of the company, so they won't really strike. Only if it was by the company.
Okay.
So you could buy that as intention.
All right.
Seriously, the negative, you were amazing.
Thank
At one
you.
point, I was in your favor at the beginning, but then I kind of switched sides due to fact ethics. I ethically cannot make a decision because problem is that what you said about how these are part-time farmers who quit will like strike. They won't strike because most farming land is owned by corporations. And because they're owned, and some of the corporations are owned by foreign entities like China or Russia, whatever one country. Because of that, they won't strike because they have major consequences for that. Yeah, how it affects.
I have a question. As judges, do you guys judge exactly what he says to me? Because he did not bring up about the companies not being just by a farmer; it is a company. So, do you guys go off of your previous knowledge that you have, or do you just go off of exactly what was said in the debate?
That's what was said in the debate.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
But pretty much what he said about how unlawful, why I chose him was because he said law. The term that he technically about how technically is unethical and unlawful, which it is unlawful, and what the term you have to use is technically this law, the reason why this law is not illegal yet, because it's called enforceable. It's three types of laws. Enforceable, there's laws that are enforceable and non-enforceable. Enforceable laws are laws that cannot be enforced and unlawful, and the reason why they don't remove them yet is because they're enforceable. So the government takes time to actually remove the law, and that's why they're enforceable. They can't be enforced. So our law actually cannot be enforced anyway. And I'm actually surprised that the NAIC didn't include a critique at this.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna write a critique.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because it kind of favors the act. The resolution kind of favors the act.
All right.
Thank you for disclosing.
Thank you. Eating?
Yeah.
I was talking about the recording.
I'm doing that.